Unless you want to switch seats, whatever you want to do.
I'm fine. I think
Okay.
we're good.
You guys say when. All right. Well, good afternoon. My name is Brad Cooper. I'm Johnson County Prosecutor. Why don't we just go down the table and introduce ourselves to each other, starting with the Sheriff.
Doug Cox, Johnson County Sheriff.
Again, Brad Cooper, Prosecutor.
Tim O'Sullivan, Chief of Police, Franklin.
Steve Barnett, Mayor of Franklin.
Megan Smither, Deputy Prosecutor.
This morning in Johnson County, members of several law enforcement agencies, particularly the Indiana State Police, the Franklin Police Department, Johnson County Sheriff's Office, the U.S. Marshals, Edinburgh Police Department, the New Whiteland Police Department, and the Trafalgar Police Department all swept across mostly central Johnson County, attempting to serve 63 arrest warrants on suspected drug dealers. This roundup was the result of a 5-month-long investigation since our last roundup, and this time we, I think, had 20 more in our roundup numbers than we did back in March. The overall investigation in this was conducted by a joint operation between the Sheriff's Department, the Franklin Police Department, and the Johnson County Prosecutor's Office, all working together to try to ferret out these drug dealers and get them off the streets of Johnson County. In this case here, we had 63 arrest warrants issued. So far, we have arrested 48 of the 63. In addition to the 48 that we've arrested, we've also arrested 4 people who were at the scene and had warrants out for their arrest or had possession of narcotics in their possession. Of the 63, 43 of them this time were arrested for at least 1 count of dealing methamphetamine. And unlike the last time, in this case, only 3 of the 63 were arrested for at least 1 count of dealing heroin. So that's really flipped those numbers around since the last time we did a drug dealing roundup. 18 of the 63 were women, and 18 of the 63 were from out of county. So this was mainly an in-county operation. This roundup here is something that we do as part of our 2-step process of addressing the opioid addiction here in Johnson County. This is specifically aimed at dealing with the supply side of this. We do what we can do to go out and arrest drug dealers, get the drugs off the streets of Johnson County, and let this serve as a deterrent for anybody who would want to deal drugs or want to come to Johnson County to deal drugs to deter them from doing so. I think the mayor wants to say something about this, and this would be a good time to do so, I believe.
Okay, I just want to thank the Franklin Police Department. I just want to thank the Franklin Police Department and all the other agencies that's involved in this operation. And since January, this is the 2nd roundup. And I think this sends a strong message that we will not tolerate drugs in our city. The mayor's office and the city council, we fully support acquiring any resources needed to keep drugs off our streets and out of our schools. Thank you, Chief.
Chief, you have something to say?
I'll just say that, first of all, I appreciate the collaborative efforts between all the agencies. It does take a village, and we're working well together, and it's for a common goal, and that's to clean the drugs up out of our county. And 63 is a big number, right on the heels of 43. But I will say that's due to the efforts of being proactive. And so we're going to continue to do so, and we work closely with the Sheriff's Office at this time. I'd like to turn it over to the Sheriff.
Thank you. First of all, let me say that some of you probably are curious what the jail numbers are this morning. Keep in mind Johnson County is a crowded jail already. However, we will not turn on the no vacancy sign for individuals such as this. We'll never tell our officers to slow down because of the crowding in the jail. So I hope people in the county that continue to want to deal in the narcotics such as these individuals will get that message and will cease, because we're not going to slow down just because the jail may have a few more people in it than we wish to have in it. So. And we do have a great working relationship between the police agencies and the prosecutor's office on these types of crimes. So hopefully at some point in time, these individuals will get the message to cease and desist.
Yeah, and overall, this is the latest roundup of what has been now about a 4.5-year effort by the three main agencies involved, my office, Sheriff's Office, and the Franklin Police Department. Over that 4-year time period, we have made over 800 undercover drug buys from drug dealers and have taken just right at 700 drug dealers off the streets by arresting them. It is a team effort, and it's an effort that we do to protect the citizens of Johnson County and by that, the citizens of Franklin as well, because Franklin is the county seat of Johnson County, and it's an overlapping jurisdiction. And what we hope to do is to, one, reduce the number of drug dealers on our streets, reduce the number of drugs on our streets by taking them off the streets. We hope we send out a message to any would-be drug dealer that if you're going to deal drugs in Johnson County, that we're going to find you, we're going to arrest you, and we're going to put you in jail. If you are a drug dealer from Marion County or the surrounding counties, we like to make this a very public event so that the message gets out to those people that if you're even thinking of coming to Johnson County, we don't want you here, and we're not going to treat you very nicely when you get here. So hopefully that message gets out on this. There's a whole separate component of this that we can discuss at another time about the treatment aspect of the users that we deal with on a daily basis, the misdemeanor users. But this today was primarily to get drug dealers and the poison they deal to our children off of our streets.
What can you say about, you've got a woman in her 20s, a man in his 70s, I mean, just the range of ages across the board that seem to be involved in this activity?
It's the opioid addiction and the methamphetamine addiction. I don't believe that it knows any bounds at this point in time. It doesn't break itself down necessarily by race or age or sex or anything like that. This time our numbers were a little bit lower than last time with the number of women dealers that we have, and just percentage-wise in this case. But still, you have 18 women on that board who are dealing primarily methamphetamine in this case in this roundup. So there's a smattering of everybody. Age group, yeah, 72 is a little bit older than normal. I will give you that one. And I bet he's probably older than most people up there by a good 20 years. So that one is unusual. Mostly if you're dealing methamphetamine, you don't live to 72. So
what's going to be done at this point to track down those remaining 15?
there are still officers out right now trying to track them down.
Any concern that a news conference like this could scare them away, have them, cross the border?
No more so than normal. Normally, if you issue an arrest warrant, it's a public record, and they can get on some of the courthouse access and find out if they have a warrant for their arrest. We have trouble and issues sometimes with bondsmen that'll go on and try to find out who has warrants for their arrest, contact them and tell them, hey, you got a warrant for your arrest, why don't you come use my bonding services to get out of jail. So in this case, we initially sealed all these warrants so that none of that would happen prior to us going out and doing this. Once we've gone to their homes, once we've gone anywhere else, we've pretty much exhausted our ability to find them through this sort of a roundup operation. At that point in time, what we like to do is put the warrants out so that every law enforcement officer that may come across this person would have access to the existence of that warrant and could arrest them at that time.
And it doesn't matter where they run. The sheriff's office will pick them up. If they've chosen to go to a warmer climate, we'll go to that warmer climate and pick them up. So it matters not where they run from here, we will bring them back.
Did everyone go peacefully without incident today, or were there any struggles or anything of that sort?
I'm not aware of any real struggles today.
No, me either.
The individuals I came into contact with were actually quite cooperative. So
I noticed that 2 of the drug dealers out of the 15 that weren't arrested, their last listed address was the Country View Mobile Home Park. Is that sort of like a drug hotspot in the area? It was not the same address, 2 different homes there, but in that same lot.
want to answer that one?
I wouldn't call it a hot spot, but there's been several arrests for that nature in that area.
Likewise, we also, I believe, had several, not several, but a couple of warrants that were very close in geographical proximity that we served down in Edinburgh today, too. There are some that were very close in geographical proximity that we served up in Greenwood today. So it's just not necessarily is that location the hot spot of Johnson County, but there are areas that, and typically I would say low rent areas that attract drug dealers and drug users because they tend to be more transient than someone who owns a home, say, up in Center Grove.
This was spread out between Columbus and Indianapolis.
Is there anything to the fact that this leans so heavily on the meth side as opposed to, is there anything to that or any reason, or is that just the way these warrants came out today?
There's a lot of speculation we could do on that. The last time we picked up a lot of heroin users, and maybe we scared off the heroin people or hit that supply a little bit. And therefore, what's left over when the heroin's gone is the methamphetamine. It's true that methamphetamine is getting easier and easier to come by. It's cheaper to buy it straight out of Mexico than it is to buy the ephedrine to manufacture it. I don't think we've had a meth lab active in this county in probably 3 or 4 years. So it's here, and it's an alternative if you can't find your heroin. There's other strategic reasons why meth might be in there, and that has to do with our statutory schematic of applying weight to the level of crime in which you can charge somebody. And typically meth weighs more than heroin. Heroin weighs more than Suboxone. So if you have a choice to what you want to arrest or what you want to buy for, you go for the heavier weight because they can get the higher level charge and put the drug dealer in prison for a longer period of time. It's not always the case, but that's certainly a factor in there.
I would like to add that it's not just Franklin. I mean, we happen to be here this second time in 6 months. This is not just in Franklin. This is all over the state. This is all over the country. But we got officers and police agencies, prosecutor's office. They're being proactive. So I want to just keep saying that we're very proud of our police and prosecutors.
Thank you.
If I could expand on that just for a minute. Keep in mind this is a very dangerous profession. Working these narcotics details with the different chemicals that are being put on these narcotics these days, just the hand-to-hand transactions that are occurring between the police and the individuals that you see in these photographs. This has become a very dangerous area of expertise within law enforcement. So I'd like to send out kudos to those in the narcotics area in Johnson County law enforcement for a job well done.
I echo that.
Yeah, they do an outstanding job. It's a pleasure working with all of them. They're the ones, quite frankly, that ought to be up here talking about this. But we can't put them up here to talk about this because then we put their face on television, no one's ever going to buy drugs from them again. But they are fantastic. They have been working this, like I said, for the past 4 years. We've done over 800 undercover buys from drug dealers. In this case here, you were talking about the geographics. Just a random, just picking some communities here. 12 of these arrest warrants came out of Franklin, 13 came out of Greenwood, 10 Indianapolis, actually 11 at Beech Grove is probably in Indianapolis, so 11 Indianapolis, 4 Whiteland, 6 Edinburgh, 3 Bargersville, 6 Whiteland, and then a couple other ones in Columbus, Mooresville, and Shelbyville. So that's, population-wise, that's fairly consistent with the populations of each one of those areas as to how many, what percentage of the buys and the arrests actually came out of those areas.
Other communities might not have a roundup of this nature or this many arrests in a year. So to the public, does that show that there is a worse problem here, or is it more indicative of the aggressiveness of the narcotics units?
It is vastly more indicative of the aggressiveness of the narcotics units. Because the last time we did a roundup, I believe Sheriff Cox and I got a letter from the Bartholomew County Sheriff thanking him, or thanking us for our aggressive nature in getting some of the people that are in his county off of his streets, because you just don't see this anywhere else. Do any other county go to these kind of efforts to get at these drug dealers? And I don't think they do. And we do that for a solid reason, and that is we want the drug dealers off the streets. We want to send the message to any drug dealer from anywhere else to stay the hell out of Johnson County. We don't want you here. If you come here, we're going to arrest you and put you in prison. We want that message to get out, and that's why we do these publicly. The other aspect of that is that if you look at the crime rate in just anywhere in Indiana, I'll just take my office for example, 78–80% of the crimes that are committed in Johnson County, especially the felonies, are committed by people who are on drugs or doing something to acquire drugs, stealing to get money to buy drugs or dealing drugs, those sorts of things. If you start to work on arresting those people that are dealing the drugs and committing the crimes, and you work to treat the users and try to get them off of the drugs so that they're no longer needing to go out to steal, to buy drugs, to use drugs and commit the other crimes they do, what you would expect to see is a reduction in the crime rate. And in the 4.5 years we've been doing this, which we started in 2013, January 1st, we have seen a 37% reduction in crime in Johnson County. So if we're getting, if our recidivism rate is 60-some%, okay, that's how many people go back to the drugs after we arrest them and try to treat them or put them in prison. We still have 40-some% that are no longer on the drugs and no longer committing crimes. And those numbers are fairly accurate in terms of when you see that since we've been doing this, 37% reduction in the overall crime rate in Johnson County. So if you think that it's more indicative that we have more drugs in Johnson County, the numbers, according to the crime rate, would tell you otherwise. Our crime rate is going down.
Can you tell me a bit about the nature of the investigation, how long it lasted, and what kind of techniques were used? Was it all undercover officers making a drug deal, or were there other methods as well?
Primarily, it was undercovers making drug deals.
Yes.
Occasionally, something will happen where you will run into somebody who's committing another crime or has a warrant for their arrest, and you'll make an arrest under those circumstances. Kind of like when we went out and served these. Oh, by the way, we're up to 49 out of 63 now, I see. Kind of like when we went out and served these here today, you see the 4 individuals down there in the bottom right. Those were people that were arrested that did not have arrest warrants as part of the roundup. They were present and either in possession of narcotics or had a warrant for their arrest. So there was no undercover operation going after them. You get some of these ancillary ones just by chance, basically.
And when did this investigation start into these 63?
These investigations never really start. They're ongoing all the time. They have been for the last 4 years, but primarily after our last roundup.
Any amount of drugs recovered today, any additional search warrants for properties that you might have come across while serving the arrest warrants?
You know, I was out and about.
Well, we had some additional meth, I believe, steroids and cash, and at least 1 gun.
The 3 places that I went today, we got a couple of grams of meth, a lot of paraphernalia, a couple of growing marijuana plants, a shotgun. I'm trying to think what else we got out of this thing too, and some joints and bags of marijuana. And that's part of it. Of these 63 people, there were, I think, a total of 133 undercover buys that resulted in these 63 individuals being charged with a crime. So some of them are repeat buys that have been done. Every time we buy some methamphetamine from somebody, especially in this case, it's mainly methamphetamine, at a minimum, we're getting those drugs off the streets. So that's not going to somebody else. That's not going to go to someone who's going to drive around and hit somebody, run over somebody. It's not going to somebody's kid. We are getting that off the street. So when we make these buys, drugs are coming off the street. When we make these arrests, we generally collect the drugs that are around them and get that off the streets too.
You talk about events like today, sending a message to other counties. I think you've talked in the past about having actual evidence from drug dealers who are facing charges, talking about the reputation of the county.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I make them my ringtones. So we typically, because when you're setting up buys, you'll get text messages, you'll get phone calls, and we record them all. And oftentimes we'll have one drug dealer telling another drug dealer, I don't come to Johnson County. And that we're very proud of.
Are more sweeps roundups like this in the future likely?
It is an ongoing investigation.
As mayor, I certainly hope so.
Sheriff, you had touched on this already, but I want to make sure I understood correctly. How will the jail handle this influx of inmates?
It is what it is. We have been preparing for this for probably a month now. So we've ordered some more supplies that we knew that we would need with an increase in jail populations. So it's something that we stay aware of. The courts and the prosecutor's office help us out tremendously when our jail population gets too high. They take a look at the members or the people that are in the jail. So they're a big help to us in getting some folks out of jail that maybe don't need to be there any longer. But in cases like this, we're never going to, once again, we're never going to lock the doors and not incarcerate individuals like this. So they're killing too much of our children, and anymore with the heroin, they're killing too many of our brothers, our sisters, our aunts, our uncles, and even the older population. We're having way too many people die from heroin. Meth is still probably I'd say meth is probably more of a common drug here in Johnson County than heroin. So way too many young people dying, way too many, and it's time that we slow that down, or try and slow that down.
Do you have an estimate of what the jail population will be after all these people are in the jail, and what the capacity is of the jail?
I'm going to guess that if we get all 63 of these individuals, my jail population could be somewhere in the area of 450 individuals in a jail that's supposed to house 322.
I've already got 49 of them, so we're close to that now.
Will any of these arrests lead you to potentially bigger fish, so to speak?
We're always fishing, yes. We don't always catch everything, but some, yeah, we.
Any
Yes,
other
I'm sorry.
questions?
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much for coming.
All right, thank you. Do you want to say something about your parking lot, or? Your windows had to be lowered?
Supplies on top of that.